Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we got even more patch 9.1 class updates. This one primarily focusing on class changes, but in a large scope, PvP changes. Even more honor talents are rolling out, with Blizzard trying to what looks like better define certain specs and give creative new tools for some of them. Some of these things, actually majority of these updates are testable right now on PTR. However, some are not testable, but sound really good on paper. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at all the PvE updates first, and then follow up with the PvP updates. I'm going to give you guys my opinions on some of these new things, whether I think they'll be good or not. But this isn't an in-depth video or anything, mostly just my thoughts on some of these new updates. So enjoy the video and let's dive right into it. First, we have balanced Druid updates. It looks like Blizzard wants to give a little bit more power to Druids after heavily nerfing them at the very beginning of 9.1. But I don't really know if these are going to be that good. Starting off with New Moon and Half Moon for the New Moon talent. Both of those moons are going to do 33% more damage. Now the Full Moon doesn't get the benefit. Half Moon and New Moon, we'll see how it pans out. Maybe in Sims it might make it a little bit closer. I don't really know personally how far New Moon and the Moon talent is from the other talents in a row, but it maybe could be a little closer. Then we have Solstice now getting yet another nerf. Shooting stars will now fall 250% more often instead of 300. So again, trying to make this talent not as good in a row. So maybe Fury of Elune is now looking even more dominant than ever before. And also a change to Stellar Drift. This talent has been redesigned. Starfall will now do 50% more damage instead of 25, but it still will have a cooldown for your Starfall. Whether this one sims really good or not, it doesn't really feel enjoyable, and I'm not really Boomkin mained, but from my little bit of trying on PTR, standing still, casting Starfall feels a lot better. It is helping you with dot management, it helps you with just overall damage output, so maybe in movement heavy fights where enemies don't live long, where you just want to burst them down with a big Starfall while on the move, that could potentially be okay, but it looks like Blizzard is really trying to make Stellar Drift not the only dominant talent in a row, to the point where could they actually get it to be worse than any other talent choice? Maybe to the point where no one plays it. I guess time will tell. Affliction Warlock's got a nice nifty update, not the biggest one ever, but right now Shadow Embrace the talent is going back to the playstyle where it can be put up on multiple enemies with a debuff, since Shadow Embrace is now going to be a talent. But we also got a new conduit change with Withering Bolt. This one, it replaces the Shadow Embrace conduit and changes it to Shadow Bolt will deal 20% damage baseline per dot on the enemy, and Drain Soul will do 10%. Now, this one is actually quite good. It got hefty nerfs since the last build of 9.1 because it was critting up to like 60k Shadow Bolt crits if you were really lucky. But right now, it does reasonable damage. And actually, I think it might be possible to try a Drain build as an Affliction Warlock. I don't think a lot of you guys are going to go Necrolord for this one. I don't think it's worth it just yet, but a Drain build could be something maybe possible in the future. I just played around with a couple different Legos. But your Shadow Bolts should do quite a bit more damage, so maybe certain talents that work off of Shadow Bolts or proc your Shadow Bolts, for example, like those off of Corruption, could potentially be okay in the future. Drain Soul doing 10% more damage per dot on the enemy plays nicely into that damage per dot playstyle that Affliction got going on as of Shadowlands. Potentially could be something good, definitely needs more testing, but feels pretty fun to play with. Then we have PvP updates, and for Demon Hunters, the one new PvP talent still isn't functional, not even playable right now on PTR, but it is somewhere in the game files. It is called Blood Moon. With Blood Moon, it gives you a couple different effects. First of all, you can now consume magic around the enemy within 8 yards, so you will kind of have an AoE consume magic. So if enemies are stacked up, you can steal more buffs. But also Spectral Sight allows you to slip into shadows while standing still, so kind of like a stealth mechanic when you use Spectral Sight. Could be used in order to find rogues before they find you, and maybe could even be used in the future to dodge mechanics. I wonder if it'll work like Shadow Meld, where you can dodge Chaos Bolts and Storm Bolts in the future. Definitely an interesting one, will be fun to play with once it's available. Hunter's got a new honor talent that I find honestly kind of weird, but maybe there's some potential to it. It's called Tranquilizing Darts. Interrupting or removing effects with Tranquilizing Shot and Muzzle or Counter Shot, depending on the spec, releases darts at nearby enemies, each reducing duration of a beneficial magic effect by 4 seconds. But what does that mean? Basically, if Chryso, which is the Warlock on screen, uses Dark Soul Instability, an ability with a 20-second duration, and then I go to interrupt the cast, he'll actually lose 4 seconds of that 20-second duration. So let's say he's casting a spell, he goes from 16-second duration to 15 seconds, because it's a long Chaos Bolt. I interrupt him, that 15 seconds becomes immediately 11, and it keeps on ticking. So it seems like a way for hunters to be a little bit more aggressive at removing the benefits of buffs, whether by completely dispelling them with Trank Shot or interrupting an enemy, but using either one of those abilities will reduce a duration of one of the many magic buffs that's still on the enemy. My question is, and this is something that needs more testing, does this work on other magic defenses or magic buffs, and what contributes to a idea of a magic buff? If it's a magic buff, is it only the stuff that can be spell stolen and purged by shamans and tranked by hunters? Or can it be stuff like pain suppression, for example, or wings from paladins? Do those count as a magic buff? Imagine if priest pops pain suppression on themselves or an ally and they are taking less damage for 8 seconds, but as a hunter you then go to purge that enemy, bam, 4 seconds of pain suppression gone, they go to cast a spell at you, you interrupt them, pain suppression disappears. That would be insane and impressive, and that would make this honor talent very interesting, but as it stands right now it seems really weird. It's not a terrible honor talent, I don't want to call it terrible because I think it's way too early, but from our testing, if it can only work on any magic buffs, imagine using this against like a mage who is running triple shield legendary. Each one of the shields counts as a magic buff. It's a buff that can be dispelled. So let's say you go Trank Shot one of those shields, then one of the 2 shields that are left over now is 4 seconds less long. Does that do anything really? Not really. I mean, they're just going to get the shields back up anyway. It doesn't matter whether that shield lasts for 40 seconds or 36 seconds. I mean, they're still going to get it up. And that shield is still going to stop you from doing damage to that priest. And that's kind of the question, I guess, is just how useful is this legendary? And I'm still not sure. Definitely needs more testing. Then we got a Brewmaster honor talent called Rodeo. Every 7 seconds while Clash is off cooldown, your next Clash can be reactivated immediately. And while the Clash at an additional enemy, this effect stacks up to 3 times. So Clash is an ability that's kind of similar to that of like a Death Knight Grip and a Warrior Charge, kind of where you force the enemy to run at you and you kind of meet in the middle, but it doesn't really seem to work on adds nearly as well for me. And with this honor talent, it should let you use your Clash ability up to 3 extra times, so like 4 uses in a single like debuff downtime of it with this honor talent. At first I thought maybe it might be an interesting mechanic where you can kind of like force enemies to run at you, kind of like, let's say the guy is running with a flag in Warsong Gulch, and as a Brewmaster you kind of force him to run back at you towards like corner of a map. You clash at him, you roll back, clash him again to force him, you know, further back to you, and you keep backing up and then forcing him towards where your position is. But instead it seems like it targets enemies at random. It doesn't really, after the first clash, follow your target at all. It actually will just randomly clash even at things that are not even there. And it doesn't seem to work properly whatsoever. It seems kind of like a weird charge ability, but I don't know how useful it'll be as of right now. Then we have Paladins, and there's a lot of things to add to Paladins. First of all, Lawbringer. Judgment applies Lawbringer to the initial target for 1 minute. Casting Judgment on any enemy causes other enemies with Lawbringer to suffer 10% of the maximum health and holy damage. So Paladins can now really cleave people really hard. So for example, I hit Kreiser with a Judgment, he has Lawbringer for a minute. Then I go to hit his pet with a Judgment as well, and Kreiser then takes 10% of his health worth of damage. And if I use the Divine Toll legendary together with Divine Toll Covenant ability where I just keep judgmenting, I'm able to do a bunch of damage to Kreiser without even touching him. Now in a realistic situation, Kreiser isn't just going to stand there and take the beating, but just being able to do that much damage to somebody without even touching him, just AFKing, that's just a lot of free damage that Paladins are looking to get in patch 9.1. So their cleave is actually going to be kind of scary since the debuff of Lawbringer lasts for a whole minute. Also, Paladins got a new talent. This one is not a Retribution talent only. Judgments of the Pure. Casting Judgment on an enemy cleanses 1 poison, disease, and magic effect on any ally affected by your aura. So just by having an aura like Devotion Aura, which gives you 3% damage reduction, everybody inside of your aura gets a free dispel. That means if Kreiser, for example, hits me with an Immolate, I can actually dispel my own Immolate based on the cooldown of my Judgment. together with ability like Divine Toll as well as the Divine Toll Legendary, where it automatically will just throw judgments every 5 seconds. If, let's say, Chrysler were to hit me with a fear, I can actually dispel my fear if the judgment flies. So essentially, Paladins can now dispel fears and CC, as long as they're of magical variety, off of their allies, because it's anybody that is within your aura, including you, but also including everybody in your party for like 3v3s or 2v2s, it seems. This totally can backfire, because if you have an Affliction Warlock on the enemy team, and for some reason you just randomly casting judgments, you are going to end up nuking yourself with those UAs. So I guess there is some hope. If Paladins start seeing a lot of Affliction Warlocks, you'll probably not run this talent. But this by itself, as long as there's no Affliction Warlock on the enemy team, seems really, really strong. Also, talents like Ultimate Retribution. When an enemy kills your ally, that enemy is marked, and if you're able to slay them within 8 seconds, you can actually just res your ally. You're able to cast Redemption, which is like a battle res, so that's going to be interesting in PvP. And Vengeance Aura got changed as well. When you are suffering from a loss of control effect, you get a stack of Vengeance Aura, which now will give you 6% crit, but no more extra holy damage. This one will have 2 stacks, so you can get 12% crit pretty easily. Crit, I guess, can sometimes be pretty good, but with the other honor talents, like, those seems a lot stronger than what we just covered here. That's why I want to save these ones for last. For Disc Brace, we got a couple of adjustments to be more aggressive. First of all, the baseline Atonement healing transfer in PvP has been increased by like 20%, I believe, and that number can definitely go up in the future. We got new honor talents for Brace called Inner Light and Darkness. You'll get 2 stances every time you press the ability. Inner Light reduces the cost of your healing abilities, and Inner Darkness increases the amount of spell damage you do and Atonement healing you generate by 10%, letting you go aggressive or defensive. Blaze of Light will now make your Smite and Penance do more damage, and Penance will also slow down enemies, allowing Priest to be a little bit more aggressive. Trinity will allow you, instead of extra heal and transferred, since that's now baseline, it'll give a Penance, Smite, and Shadow Fiend a higher chance to crit as long as there's 3 atonements on allies. While Ultimate Radiance, though, is seeing a nerf, your Power Word Radiance instant cast will now heal only 150% of the heal instead of 250. It looks like Blizzard doesn't want Priests to just be able to, at least in disc variety, just kind of nuke AoE heal their allies, but rather focus on the aggressive playstyle the Disc Priest naturally has. When it comes to Holy Priest, Blizzard wants to buff their self-healing and healing output. So first of all, Flash of Light is going to do, I think, 15% more healing in PvP, but also there's a variety of different changes like Cardinal Mending. Prayer of Mending healing is now increased by 50%, and it has a longer jump distance. Divine Ascension, whenever you fly out of harm's way, you'll actually have a longer spell range, so allies don't have to literally sit right under you while you're above in the air. Greater Heal got buffed, where it'll now ignore healing reduction effects. I wonder if that includes dampening, and its cooldown has been reduced to 12 seconds instead of 15. Also, Miracle Worker has been slightly nerfed, so it now has a 20% reduction cooldown to it instead of 25. Then we get some interesting stuff with Shamans. First of all, Static Field Totem, we tested it in the previous video, but now they bought the totem to be 10% of your health, and it's a kind of tool that you'll use that zones enemies, either keeps them in the totem area or out of the totem area. So I think it'll have very interesting output in certain arenas, but I think it'll have more of a play in BGs, honestly. For Restoration Shaman, we have Living Tide. Healing Tide's totem cooldown is reduced by 1.5 minutes, and it heals for 100% each time it pulses. But Spirit Link on a talent has been removed, which maybe will be interesting for how Living Tide will have in uses for Rest or Shamans. Also, general change to all Shaman specs. Seasoned Winds on a talent has been added, where interrupting a spell with Wind Shear decreases your damage taken from that spell skull by 20% for 12 seconds. This one is going to be interesting because there are some arguments like you are just interrupted that cast. Why do you need a damage reduction from that cast? You just stopped an enemy from casting the spell at you. And that works, I think, for dot classes a lot better, but generally if somebody, let's say, is super aggressive and Shaman interrupt only lasts for like, what, 3 seconds anyway, they're probably going to hit you with a spell pretty quickly. This one will be weird against classes that have multiple skills to cast, like a Fire Mage who's trying to polymorph your casters and healers. They have Arcane Skull and Fire Skull. Interrupt them Arcane sub CC, but you don't get the benefit of the DR, so this one will be very interesting. And that's going to be everything we have for the class changes going for patch 9.1, the PvE and the PvP stuff we have so far. Hope hoping for some more updates in the future. Definitely want to cover the legendaries in the future update as well. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. You'll let me know your thoughts in the comments below about all these new updates. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.